talked a bit about getting the role profile right. And you talked about a client just now who has not hired for the last 10 years. How have job adverts changed in that time?
Yeah, I think the headline I would say is that simpler is better. I think that thinking back to this thing of, somebody's been in the role and then they leave and you write down everything that they ever did. I think we're really suggesting clients move away from that. And we're seeing that a lot, that people are a lot more efficient with that. I think we know more that, some people will apply if they can only do half of a role, but a lot of people will actually rule themselves out unless they feel really confident that they can do every part of the role. And the other thing I ask people to do is, be really specific. This is the function of the role, put that in there. These are the things that you're going to be doing most often. And it's not binding, of course, but if you can make a suggestion about how much time is spent on each, then the candidates will see that and they will either go, I can do all those things. I like the sound of that. But it's also a good thing if somebody looks at that and goes, 40% data entry. I don't have the concentration for that. I'm not looking for that kind of job. But when there's 20 things in there and it's very vague and it's very specific, we might not have that clear picture. So I think that's the first key point, and that will inform the shortlisting that we do. Do you have experience of the things that this job is actually made up of? The second change that I've seen, at least in terms of mentality, is that people are less likely to put a lot of desirable criteria. We really are being strict about what is essential for this role. And the way I phrase it is, if this person comes in, what can I afford, and have time to teach them and explain to them, versus actually you need to know how to do that. So you might not have time to teach somebody to use Excel. One of the things you might be paying them for is the fact that they can analyze data, and you use Excel, or the fact that they have experience working with clients, because you can't start from scratch with that. But what you might be able to do, for example, and we work a lot with the Lloyd's market, is help them to understand some of the specific particulars of the Lloyd's market, but you couldn't teach them the core skill of the role. So I think we've got a lot better at refining that. Definitely from a mentality point, I think actually when we then go and look at role adverts, which we often do in our sessions, we go, yeah, there is still a lot of that there. And I get it, it's busy. Some firms might have 40 jobs live, and then some of the role adverts are way more specific. Some of them maybe are in that form. So one of the things I do say is the more effort you put into that role advert, the easier the process is going to get for you. And the only other thing I'd say is, I know I'm saying role advert, we might be talking about a job description that goes on a website, but this is equally true if you brief a recruiter. So you might have an internal talent team, or you might have, an external partner you use. But if you go out to them with, 20 criteria and they come back with 60 CVs that roughly fit it, that's going to be a lot of work for you. Whereas actually, the more you can refine it, the more you can make it really a job that someone can imagine doing, I think the less candidates you'll get. But that's a good thing, because we're shortlisting, to actually get to that interview stage.
Now, you're talking about quality over quantity, aren't you?
Yeah, and as I say, if you put people off because they don't want to do the tasks that are in that job, that's good. Obviously, what we talk about is you don't want to put them off because you've got measures in there and metrics that don't help you. For example, must have had experience in X kind of company. You might lose great candidates. But if you say must be able to do X and that's the core of the role, well, we want to lose the people that can't do that.